In that first year of business, my wife became pregnant, and we were in a small apartment and we wanted to try to find a home. So I went out looking, and all the banks rejected me for mortgages because I was a startup. And so it really was a crazy year of creating a family, growing a business, and buying a home. And that was just, I don't recommend it for anyone. And I learned from that a lot, but the recommendation would be, don't do that. Keep perspective on your life and the business. You need to find a way to enjoy the ups and downs because they will come. Obviously, there are different levels of ups and downs, and some are catastrophic and you want to avoid those. But I think you can't always be so highly reactive. Look for trends, look for patterns. Be honest with yourself about what you're good at and what you're not good at. Be open to challenge your assumptions. And
welcome to Visionary Voices, a podcast where we connect with forward-thinking entrepreneurs to learn from their stories. I'm your host, Ida, and today we are joined by Peter Scott. Peter is the founder and principal at Q30 Design Inc., a Toronto-based branding, digital, and investor relations communications firm. Q3 Designs was also recognized as one of the top growing companies in Canada in 2023, and you guys are ranked 298. It's an absolute pleasure to have you today, Peter. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much, Ida. Pleasure to participate, and thank you for the courtesy of the invitation. I'm happy to share any thoughts I have.
Awesome. We love to know the stories of all the visionary people who are right here in Canada. So we reached out to you for that, and let's know a little bit about you.
Well, I'm not sure how far I can go back, way back, because you can probably tell that I'm no longer in the early part of my career. So, but I, really, like many young people, I was creative in, the more traditional sense of drawing, et cetera, as a young person. I was really fortunate when I got to the high school age, is that my particular high school that I was just naturally sort of sent to because of my geography, had an amazing, at the time it was called a commercial art program. And really what it was is a unique opportunity to be exposed to the world of design in high school, which is really rare for many people. And believe me, I know, and I've seen through my own children that, it's very difficult to sort of peg a career direction at a young age. But yeah. I was exposed to this program that was essentially a university level portfolio preparation class that introduced me to the world of design, branding, things that, that I sort of wasn't aware of as a potential vocation for myself. And so really what that early high school education did for me was allow me to prepare a portfolio to then go on to the Ontario College of Art and Design in Toronto, which at the time was sort of the school. It's gotten much more open now. There's some wonderful academic institutions in Toronto now, but at the time there were only a couple, and OCAD was the one that I really wanted to attend. I only applied there, and my fallback is I had all the academics for engineering. So it was really, it was either a hit or miss. If I wasn't accepted, I was going to take a new career path. And so thankfully, I was accepted at OCAD into their 4-year communication and design program, and that really set me on my career path to this business that I've called my life for 40 some odd years now.
So if you hadn't been accepted into OCAD, what was the other career that you would have chosen?
Well, it's terrible, but I would have been engineering, which I think I would have been a terrible engineer. I mean, I had the academics for it, but I had no passion for it. So really, the fallback wasn't a very good one. And I'm really glad that my first choice actually worked out, because I think I would have struggled like many young people do. So it all worked out in hindsight. So I was very fortunate, and it really was a gift to have that kind of early exposure to a world that many people, especially in their teenage years, are not aware of. Maybe more so today, but at the time it was not exactly what we would call a traditional vocation.
So what is it you see right now that is different from what the school system does compared to what you did that gave you that trajectory?
Well, I think right now, basically brands, which is a big part of what we do, and obviously digital development. I mean, young people are their whole world is digital, so they know that things need to be built and designed, and they already are intuitively understanding user experience because they're on it every day. So they know what works and what doesn't work. So I think that already, and branding, people follow brands. They have their favorite brands. They understand how the brands present themselves in the retail space or online. And so I think our world of sort of creative design is a little bit, there's a greater awareness. And so I think when people are even in the high school age, they understand that there are opportunities if they have a creative bent and if that interests them. Again, it's not for everyone, but I think it's much more open. For me, it was a little bit of a wild west. I really didn't kind of understand the world in the same way that I would hope many people do now. And I think, between guidance counselors and various other things, it's opened up lots of career paths for people. And a lot of people now in design start in the freelance world, or they start out as entrepreneurs. Whereas in my time, it was like an apprenticeship based education where you graduated with skills, but you really then, a firm that was going to hire you was taking a chance, and they were basically going to train you on the job for the next several years. So I think things have evolved a fair bit. And keep in mind, I graduated before the computer was a part at all. So I've seen, exponential changes in my lifetime as a designer.
Okay, I'm just gonna kind of just reveal my age group right now, but I need to ask. So, what was used before computers?
It was all tactile. It was all manual. Basically design was it was literally sort of a cut and paste. That's a digital term, but I'm using it in the traditional sense. It was much more of a hands-on craft, and so there really was a huge learning curve. Because literally in 1985 or 6, we had one computer in the office for 10 people, and we would all take turns, and we would all, go on courses. And it really was a huge revolution in our business. And it took a lot of time before it kind of became a tool that we mastered as opposed to the other way around. So, it's been an interesting journey. And I know that I sound fairly senior when I talk about it, but it's something that I think, again, now people are born as digital natives. And so it's taken that part of their learning curve away. But all the creative requirements are still very much their understanding of typography and space and form. So, the education system has changed, but they're still training the fundamentals that are really important in what we do.
Do you remember what your first design was?
Oh, well, it was probably assisting a senior designer. I mean, the firm that I graduated in 1983, and I've had this interesting time where large parts of my career development have happened during recession. So 1983 was sort of in amongst a reasonably large recession, and all of the academic advisors I had were saying to everyone, don't worry about salary, just try to get a job. You need experience, and it's really competitive out there. So I managed, after I think 3 or 4 interviews, to find a job at a ridiculously low pay scale, which is fine because I had very limited needs at the time. I started off basically assisting people that were much more senior than I, doing sort of basic tasks. Like, you weren't given a project to design, you were given parts of projects to sort of manage and do the production on. So I, learned a lot of the technical hands-on craft through that kind of circumstance. And it wasn't until I was working probably for a couple of years that I would be given small end-to-end jobs, small brochures, or maybe a logo for an independent dentist or someone in their network, low risk jobs where I could be a little bit creative and sort of create a project from end to end. And that's, I developed my passion for design doing that. And then over the years, the projects got bigger and bigger and more complicated. And, I learned the skills to be able to manage those kinds of projects too.
Yeah, I can't help but notice how hard it was to start out at that time and how easy it is comparatively right now to be able to do the same thing.
I think it's true. I would say that it's easier on one level, like the practicality of being able to sort of have the tools to sort of go forward and produce work is perhaps easier in that, when I started my business, a used Mac computer with a scanner, black and white scanner and black and white printer cost me $17,000.
Wow.
So now, for $1,500, you can get a used laptop Mac, if that's most designers work on in the Apple world. And, you can be up and running and create, almost any level of project if you have the skill set and the desire. So, but I think what's really changed is that they're graduating more and more designers. They've added a Bachelor of Design to most Canadian universities that have a design course are adding a Bachelor of Design major. And they're graduating a lot of highly skilled people, but the market still picks the cream of the crop. And I think it's very difficult for a lot of those people to maybe find stable employment, especially if they're working in a freelance world where you don't get the mentoring that you need to properly start your career.
Okay. So when you talked about a long time ago, you didn't have the tools like the computers and all to be able to do it as easily as that. And then you had the phase where computers came into play and then it made it so much easier. But I'm looking at now, not only computers, but we have AI. What are your thoughts on that and what it's doing to destroy or help the creative space?
Well, I think like any disruptive new technology, it's all those things at the moment. And I think what the world and our world of design is trying to do is figure out how to use them responsibly, effectively, but not rely on them in sort of for true, so raw creativity. So I think the part of AI that I think will have the most benefit to specifically my industry of design would be for managing some of the more mundane tasks that we need to do on a day-to-day basis, things that when you need sort of multiple variations of something, or basic things like some level of proposal writing perhaps. I think that the pure creativity, you're in a very difficult and dangerous zone when you're relying on that, because there's no control over the authorship. There's no way you can guarantee that it is ownable and trademark protected and those kinds of things. So I mean, I think over time things will become a little bit more known. The platforms themselves will improve, and so I think there are a lot of early adopters, and I admire them on some level because you need to play with technology to figure it out. But I think there is a danger for the kind of work we do for large corporate clients that you can't propose things that aren't your ultimate creation or that have been heavily influenced by a world that you can't control.
Yeah, that's very true. And across the board, it goes to add more value to authenticity and the originality, because I could basically get ChatGPT to do everything for me, but there is no originality to that. So I think to your point, yes, it's there, and yes, it's a threat, but it's not, in the sense that we still need the things that are more authentic and more natural and more original will always have a lot more value than that.
Right. I mean, there's it wasn't AI, but there was a similar kind of attempt by companies like Fiverr and others that would offer logos for $5, and it really, of course, you can get something that looks professional, but whether or not it's heavily influenced and or stolen from another source, and that it's not differentiated in any way because it's not created from scratch. People are just sort of churning out repeat designs. So the world always has an appetite for things inexpensive, but there's value in sort of the true custom and the true creativity that we offer. So I don't feel overly threatened. I think we do need to be aware, and I think there is a real ethical responsibility to approach it well. And I think we're still, Q30 specifically is very in the early stages of sort of creating our platform on where we stand on AI, and I think we're being very careful and cautious right now.
Yeah, beautiful. Well said. Okay. So could you share with us a pivotal moment in your journey that helped to shape your path?
Sure. I think one of the things that was really interesting for me so when I graduated, I worked for a firm in Toronto. They mostly focused on, at the time, investor relations. So annual reports and related projects were very much sort of the high end of sort of design and print in our world. And so I got, exposed and educated on how those projects were created and done, and won a lot of awards. But I was working, days, nights, and weekends, as a young person, to just sort of, and keep in mind that annual reports especially they're very compressed timelines. They're deadline oriented. Obviously they're legal deadlines. Mm-hmm. And because many companies have the same year end, it's a very compressed time of year. So you're doing, 7 or 8 or 9 annual reports simultaneously, and it's very draining. And so I got exposed to sort of that level of work. And what I found is that it was very difficult to sort of sustain any kind of positive lifestyle balance. It was, very hard on the staff. And so because I was sort of reasonably successful doing it, after 8 years, the firm I was at, they offered me a partnership. Okay. And they also offered another senior designer, a woman whose name is Glenda Rissman, a partnership as well. And it really forced me to examine, do I want to attach myself to this business model that sort of churns out people? We had lasted for 8 years, but there was a revolving door of staff that just, put in a year or two and they would be burnt out and would leave. Mm-hmm. And I saw that really wasn't a sustainable business model. And the ultimate irony is that the partnership that was offered to Glenda and myself actually prompted us to begin talking about, could we start our own business? And I had wanted that conceptually for years, but I knew that as an individual, a bit of an introvert, I just didn't think I could do it on my own. I didn't have the wherewithal to go get clients and sort of do that marketing side of the business. I knew I could do the work, but Glenda is very different than me, very much more gregarious. And we made a pact that if we're going to do this, that she would go out and get the work, and then whatever we got, I would design and produce it. And we made the decision in 1991 to go out on our own. So we said no to a partnership at a proven design firm, which again, 1991 was another recession. That's why I bring it up, because it was a time. But the reality is, during a recession, sometimes companies are looking to save money. And so a young startup firm can be much more cost competitive, and they're willing to take a chance. And so we were the two of us and one computer, and Glenda went out and got all kinds of small projects. I had a non-compete clause in my contract, so we had an 18-month hiatus, and clients from the other firm were approaching us, and we just said, we can't take the risk of being sued. And we just said, no. And so it basically taught us to work, to build from scratch. And so we, kept our personal lives very lean. We found a 500 square foot office in downtown Toronto that was half the cost of what we're going to pay for a larger sort of shared apartment space. And we hung our shingle out and started. And it was a great, it was a wild first few years of business. But we managed to sustain ourselves. And then almost 18 months to the day, one of the largest clients that we still currently work for came to us and said, we'd like you to do our annual report. And that client was TD Bank. Oh, wow. And so I have produced TD Bank's annual report for 32 consecutive years at Q30 Design, and it's now print and it's digital, and we do a lot of other work for the bank. So that kind of set us on our course. It allowed us to hire our first employee, who was a summer student, Daryl, who never left. He's still here. He's a VP of digital now. So it allowed us to sort of have a little bit of more solidity for growth. But that's sort of how we started. So the pivotal thing was sort of being exposed to a business model that didn't fit for myself and wanting to change it. And so sort of learning from the bad to create the good. And that's what prompted Glenda and I to go out on our own. And I think we've been quite successful in sort of re-engineering that sort of burn the staff out model to a much more sort of balanced lifestyle approach.
Oh, wow. Okay. I got like 10 questions out of that. Oh my God. Okay. First off, when you started out when you created Q30 Design with Glenda, was there a moment where you thought, oh my God, what did we just do? We should have just stayed in the other firm.
Many. And I have to say that, part of it was in that first year of business, Glenda is not my life partner, is my business partner. So my wife became pregnant, and we we were in a small apartment and we wanted to try to find a home. So I went out looking, and all the banks rejected me for mortgages because I was a startup and my past history had no bearing on my future. So we had to go through a mortgage broker. So it really was a crazy year of creating a family, and growing a business and buying home. And that was just, I don't recommend it for anyone. And, I learned from that a lot, but the recommendation would be don't do that.
Don't do what? Don't start a business?
No, don't do too much at one time. Try to focus on, if you're going to start a business, make that your focus and try to manage, as best you can, your world around it. So, but that being said, it was a really exciting time, and I had to put so much energy into the business because I knew it was, I had a family now to support, and those kinds of things make you work really, really, really hard. And so, although we had, the first 5 years, like any new business, were hit and miss, and we were sort of on the edge of, being profitable all the time or not. We sort of stuck it out. And I think our core values of being really, really, treating our clients really well, treating our staff really well, and treating our vendors, our vendor partners really well are really, really important, because in the early days, you're relying on sort of referral network. And if people have a good experience, whether it be clients, staff, or vendors, they tend to sort of put you in a positive light when people get opportunities. And that's sort of the natural marketing that we did for many, many years. And it worked for us for a long time.
Mm-hmm. So I spoke to another entrepreneur not too long ago, and she was talking about like trying to figure out what is it that even though you felt like I made a mistake, what stopped you from going back? What kept you going forward?
For me, it's the taste of being an entrepreneur. I mean, I'm the youngest of 6 kids. My dad worked for a company for 45 consecutive years. Almost all my siblings are teachers. Again, wonderful profession, but not entrepreneurial. So I have no entrepreneurial genetics in me. Mm-hmm. But for me as a designer, I saw the freedom to sort of chart my own course, be my own boss, and create a business that I wanted to go to every day. And I had been in a working environment, working for someone else, where it was just too stressful. There was too much pressure placed on individuals without any level of control or say in the business. And I knew that at that point, I was almost sort of unemployable beyond running my own business, because there was no, as much as I wished I had a stable salary, I did not wish to have everything that came with it. So for me, there really wasn't any thought about going backwards other than, practical security, which thankfully I didn't have to consider.
Yeah. What would you say to a person who finds themselves to be unemployable, but don't have the drive or what it takes to actually be an entrepreneur?
Well, I think you really, the drive, and again, the drive takes many different forms. I think sometimes that word gets interpreted as you have to be super aggressive or super outgoing. And that's certainly not who I am. I think you need to have sort of, the quiet confidence. And I'm a highly productive person. I get enjoyment from doing and completing things. I think that's a drive for me that is much more valuable than, trying to go out and network at parties and those kinds of things. There's a place for everyone. So I think you need to find what part of you has drive. And if it's not the traditional kind of entrepreneur, which again, my many entrepreneurs, to me, there are kind of two kinds. There's those who, they tend to come, in my bias, from more of a business training background. They want to build something to sell it, to make their wealth through building and selling and building and selling. Whereas my style of entrepreneur wants to build something that reflects who they are, that can live on, that can provide a lifestyle for people, that yourself and the people that work with you. And it's something that you want to live on. So I didn't ever build it to sell it. I build it to grow it and to provide a foundation for myself, my business partner, and all the people that work for us.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you mentioned one of your employees, Daryl, who's been there for how many years?
32-ish.
Okay, and and I'm trying to contrast that to the place you worked at before, where it was more like a revolving door.
Yes.
What what is different?
Well, it's hard to put it into words, but to me, I want to work with people who I like, that we have a mutual respect and trust, and that view me as the same kind of contributor to the business as they are. So I'm a very hands-on person. Obviously, my role in the business has changed over the years, but I'm a trained designer, and up until the business grew to a certain scale, I was hands-on like everyone else. And when people were working late at night, it was me too. So I think we create an environment that when there are times of stress and busyness, and all businesses have it, and certainly design, which tends to be kind of, clients send things to you at 5 p.m. and they want it the next morning kind of a lifestyle, where I have the mindset is that we're all in it together, and that I don't abandon you if that's the case, that we all pitch in and help each other out. And I think that's the difference. And it sounds very simple and maybe obvious, but the world of design and advertising can be rather cutthroat, and it's very hierarchical. And I wanted to have a structure where we felt like we were all paddling in the same direction to the same cause, and we would all be rewarded for that kind of effort.
Okay, and I believe your employees all feel that, and that's why they stick around so long.
Well, we're now counting many of our employees. We're up to 15 now. We've hired 3 since January, so there are a lot of new people involved. But our core group of people, we measure their tenure here in decades now, which to me is what it does is it creates stability for me as a business owner. I think for the client experience, it creates stability in that the same faces are handling their work, that because we do much of our work is repeat business. We're, agency of record for several large corporate clients, and continuity of creative staff, I think, gives them comfort, and it really cuts down on the learning curve, and projects get done much more effectively and efficiently when there's some level of continuity. So, although we are growing, we have this core senior team has been stable for, 7 to 32 years. So It's a pretty good tenure.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of small businesses or medium-sized businesses can say that for themselves.
Well, I don't think so. I know in our world, there is a lot of tendency for designers, especially young designers, to spend a couple of years at a firm, gain experience, get some portfolio, and then move on. And that's how they grow their career path. We're trying to build a business, and I think we're near the point with the scale we are now where people can start at a certain level and grow up through the ranks. If they're enjoying the work and the responsibilities, there is room for them to grow. And I think that is certainly a big difference in how we've kind of now versus 20 years ago, when we kind of didn't have that infrastructure to be, and that sort of level of management that can help that process.
Yeah, and I think also that a lot of companies are beginning to realize the importance of culture, which, to your point of you talking about, if something comes in at 5 o'clock and the client needs it for the next day, you're part of it. You all are doing it together. You said it was a small part, but I think it is the part. It's the important part. It's the culture that keeps the team going.
I think so. And I think it's really important. And culture goes beyond, obviously, that's sort of the team environment of what we do. There's also, I think, the mix of people that we hire. We try to create a home where people, if they identify differently, they can be comfortable, and we all respect each other. I am finding a lot of the younger people that we hire, they're looking at the kind of work we do and judging based on that. Are we working in sectors where they don't want to be a part of? And so I think it's giving us a new lens to look at the kind of work that we do, what is the right kind of client for us, what kind of work we pursue. Certainly it influences, the pro bono work that we do, the kind of free work that we offer to organizations that need it, and that we feel good about. So I think the whole cultural aspect, whether it's, our environmental stance, our cultural stance, or, sort of diversity, equity, and inclusion, I think are all critical points for people. And I think rather than it be a top-down decision, what we're trying to do is make it a communal effort to decide, where do we want to evolve as a business, and people feel like they have a voice in that journey. I think is really important.
Yeah, that's great. So let's talk about your company being one of the top growing companies in Canada. So I came across the list, and there's quite a good number of companies, and you happen to be on it, where Q30 Design was recognized as one of the fastest growing companies in Canada. My question is, can you tell us the journey to it? And was it a goal to be on the list?
So those are really interesting questions, and to be honest, the journey starts well beyond the award, or well behind the award. So we were in 2018 ish. We had been in business for many years, 20 years or so, and we had gotten a little complacent. My business partner and I, we were relying on repeat business. We did the classic entrepreneurial thing where we were relying on a couple of clients being way more of our revenue percentage than we were comfortable or should have been. And then all of a sudden something happens. There was a bit of an inflection point where big clients started to scale back some of the work that was coming to us. Our referral network was drying up. It was certainly very sort of competitive for the kind of work that we were traditionally doing. And all of a sudden, we were at a point where our revenue had dropped significantly over the course of time. We had to inject personal money back into the business to make payroll. And that is a bit of a wake-up call for a mature firm. And so what my partner and I discussed was we need a new way of driving our business development. And she and I were both good at doing the work, but getting the work was not our strong suit at this point. And so we made the decision to hire a business development person, which, again, I've seen it happen in many other design firms with very mixed success, because you're trying to get a person who kind of represents your culture to go forward to get the right kind of work. And often those synergies don't happen. But we ended up finding a great woman named Joanne Mondelli, who came on board to help us refine our RFP response process to go to market with a much more sort of a salient sales plan and offering. And we also committed to that this wasn't going to happen overnight, that if we're going to do this, we had to invest in her and her process, and that we as business owners, Glenda and I, had to be a part of that journey too. So it literally took the better part of a year before we landed a couple of sizable new digital projects that really sort of changed the course of our business, in that once we completed them, and they take about a year to complete at least, we could then go to market as having a much more robust digital offering and doing large sort of government work much more competitively with those case studies. And so that began a process of snowballing the kind of scale of project that we could get. And so over the course of several years, we went from a revenue of about 1.4 million to over $3 million, and that for a 32-year-old business is exponential growth. I mean, it put us comfortably in the middle of the 500 or so firms, which may not be that impressive, but if you look at the top 100, they're mostly startups, and they have exponential, they have 40,000% growth because they had nothing, and now they have something. Mm-hmm. Whereas we were taking a 30-year-old firm and basically re-engineering it. And we had 136% growth over a 3-year period. And we did that all through, we didn't merge with anyone, we didn't buy anyone. It really was just through organic growth. And for me, that's why I was very excited. Now, Joanne Mondelli, so our goal was to not get on any list. It was to grow, to save, and then grow the business. And so Joanne, whose job is to sort of keep her eyes open to the world, said, we've had amazing growth. Maybe we could, submit to this. And we think it's quite a widely recognized achievement. And so we submitted, and we're very fortunate to win. And yes, it's something that kind of acknowledged everyone in our office's contribution to it, because it's not, you can't just get work, you have to do it, and you have to do it well. And we've now maintained that revenue stability over the last 3 years. So we may not be on the list again, but the hurdle that we went through to sort of get to where we are now has been so significant to our business success. It's helped us sort of rejig our offering. We now do, big digital projects. We do end-to-end branding projects, and we have had a big resurgence, ironically, in investor relations because of the rise of environmental social governance reporting. That's become kind of a mandate for large firms. We've gotten back into investor reporting as a specialty that I come from, and we've grown that to a significant part of our business. And those sort of three pillars are entry points into client relationships that can cross-sell each other. So they may know us for an annual report, but we can also do digital work for them and vice versa. So it's given us a much more stable revenue model, business approach, and it widens out the ups and downs of client engagement. Our business isn't built on retainers or anything like that. So the revenue really is at the mercy of client need. And so you need to have lots of clients and lots of needs to make sure that your revenue is stable over time. And I feel much better now than when we were in 2018 and 2019, for sure.
Yeah, that's beautiful. When you talk, I take notes. And okay, you had a wake up call, the money run dry, and you had to inject personal cash into it. And that was the pinch.
Yes.
But for a lot of people, when they feel that pinch, it's two reactions. It's either like, okay, let's shut down shop. This is not happening anymore, or let's find somebody who knows how to do something we don't know and get a solution. In your case, you choose the second option. Why?
Because I think we both still had the passion for the business. I think we saw that our core offering and our creativity was still really strong. And I think what we realized is that, the world was evolving from a sales and marketing standpoint, and we weren't. And so we needed to try something, and the hiring Joanne was a risk because we had no experience with it. It could have failed, but it doesn't mean we wouldn't have given, we may have tried for someone else, or we would have, I think we were both so invested in the business and its success personally and emotionally that you don't entertain failure the same way. You realize it's possible, and believe me, there were highly stressful times, but I think we were confident that it wasn't like we were irrelevant. It just, we needed to get in front of the right people again, and we didn't have the methodology to do that. And Joanne helped us do that for sure.
What would you say to somebody who went through what you went through?
Well, I think the writing was on the wall for us earlier than we recognized it. I think what you have to realize is that, revenue dips or client engagement changes, that of course they're a part of business, but I think what you have to do is you can never get complacent. There is lots of brilliant marketing material out there about running businesses, and everyone says don't stop selling when you're busy. And that really it's really, really true, because you can't, because if you're looking at each other and you don't have work and you need to then start marketing, there's a long time frame, a long lead time before that effort will pay off. So you constantly want to be doing it. So that's why Joanne is still very much a part of our business and is constantly out there looking for new work. Yes, we're trying to grow our existing client base and cross-sell to, the clients that we have, because growing existing clients is much easier than net new. But we know that at 15 people and with the kind of specialty offering we have, we constantly have to be out there looking for new opportunities. And so Joanne gives us the ability to always have that on our radar, and that's made a huge difference in our revenue stability.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. So if there is something that you could look back and change about your business, what would it be?
Wow, that's a challenging one, and I'm not prepared for it, but let me see what I could think of. I think that I think it's funny because I always imagine entrepreneurs as natural risk takers. Like, it just seems like that's, of course you can start a business, that's a risk. And obviously that's true to some level, but I think both Glenda and I are risk averse people. So we did start our own business, but I think we were very, very careful. And I think that for a certain level of growth, it's an important attribute, because we always left money in the business. We never had to like scale up and let staff go. So we always had that mindset, which I think was very good on one side, but it also, I think you miss opportunities to kind of test your business model into some areas. And, some of those tests can be lower risks. Some are obviously higher risks. But I think there were opportunities over the course of our 30 plus years in business where we probably could have tested some things out, and it may have helped us sort of evolve our business path a little more. So it's tricky, because I don't want to say, so just that means everybody should take risks. I think you just need to be open to challenge your assumptions. And even if things are working well, keep your eyes open. And it's also talk to people. Like, one of the things that I really didn't like about the studio that I came from many years ago is that it was highly competitive, and it was dog eat dog, and we would never talk to other firms because they were just going to steal your clients. And what I found over the last 10 or 15 years is there's much more willingness. So I'm a part of the Registered Graphic Designers. I'm a certified designer. We have a governing body, the RGD, and they offer a lot of opportunity to network within our own community. And now I'm part of a firm owners group that meets once every month or so. And it's remarkable how open that we are with each other. I mean, we're all competitors, theoretically, but I've always said that if I have to lose a job to somebody, I'd rather lose it to somebody I like rather than someone I don't. And it's been great, because we have all the same kind of stories. We have the same issues with business development and staffing and human resources in general. And it's a world that, and by the way, I bought my business partner out 2 years ago. She retired. It was very amicable. Okay. So I'm now a solopreneur as the founder and 100% owner of the business. So It's nice for me to have an opportunity to talk to other people, other founders or business owners, to share experiences and to get advice and to offer advice. And I think that part of the design world, at least my part of the design world, because I don't think it's necessarily universal. I feel much better in that I'm not a solo person that can't reach out to a competitor and ask for support or advice. And that really makes me feel a little less alone on this journey.
Mm-hmm. And you touched on a very good point there. And it reminds me of something I heard not long ago where they said, I think it's Nike that said there wouldn't be any Nike without Adidas, or there wouldn't be Adidas without Nike. It's what it is because of the competition, right? Well, not because of, but it kind of, when you know that there is somebody else who's out there who could become better than you, in a way, it pushes you to even be better too, and all that. So it's networking, it's the competition, it's all of that.
I certainly agree. I think that there's many design firms like ours out there that are doing great work. It keeps us on our toes because the bar is constantly moving upwards. And it helps, again, it reminds me that complacency is really where you get caught as a business owner. And you have to, keep your eye on the ball. My business is my life. It's not 24 hours a day. I have family. I have lots of other hobbies and things that I like to do. So it's not ruling my life. But as a business owner, it's never really out of my head. So it's one of those, it's a blessing and a curse, but I didn't have it any other way.
Oh, good. So if you were to look back if you were to look and talk to an entrepreneur who is just at the beginning of their journey, what advice would you give to them for somebody who also, like you, is trying to do some positive in the world?
Well, I think I actually am mentoring through the RGD a younger design firm. We have different sort of things that we offer, and I was asked to meet with these people and just talk about business. And I see them struggling with a lot of the similar problems that we went through. And part of that is just the natural journey of building a small business. You're going to have cash crunches and you're going to have big losses and big wins. And I think it's to kind of keep perspective on your life and the business. You need to find a way to enjoy the ups and downs because they will come. And obviously, there are different levels of ups and downs, and some are catastrophic, and you want to avoid those. But I think you can't always be so highly reactive. I think look for trends, look for patterns, be honest with yourself about what you're good at and what you're not good at, and find ways to augment your skill set. The great thing about our world now is that freelance support in all aspects of our business is so much more prevalent out there. There are great people that are available who, again, it's a lower risk hiring a freelancer than hiring a new full-time person. And It's a great way to test, is that skill set something that you really need internally and you should bring it in-house versus, let's just keep it with good outsourced people. And I think it's testing those kinds of new models and new relationships and new service offerings. I learned, used to be when someone would ask me, have you done X or Y? And if I hadn't, I would say, oh no, we don't do that. And now my tendency is to say, I haven't done it, but I really want to try. And I think I know some great people in my network who could help me. And I think if you have a trusting client relationship, they don't see that as a negative. Yeah. They see that the transparency of you acknowledging what your core offering is and how you might augment your services is often, or more often than not, viewed as a positive. And so I'm much more happy to say yes, because I have much more confidence to know that I can get anything done, again, with the right research and network, and, be open to that kind of, meandering river of your career life, that it's, you'll eventually get to the direction you're going. It just might take a few different curves along the way.
Yeah, it reminds me of something that a guest on the podcast, Danny Iny, I think 2 episodes ago, he also said. He said, when an entrepreneur is asked, can you do this? Like when people are asked, can you do this? Most people think the question is, are you able to do this now? But a person with an entrepreneurial mindset thinks the question to mean, is it plausible that you could acquire the skill sets or the people necessary to do this thing for me in the amount of time necessary to do it? And the answer to that is yes, because an entrepreneur is always going to think like, maybe I don't know how to do it, but someone in my team or someone in my network or someone in fill in the blank will be able to solve that problem.
Yeah. And I think the other thing is recognizing areas in your particular marketplace where clients keep asking for something and you may not be able to do it, but you realize it's a common need. We had the same kind. So when we were growing our digital practice, we were getting more and more complex digital website projects and general accessibility. So the requirements of creating digital properties that are accessible by all people. So people who have sight impairments or hearing impairments or cognitive load impairments need to be able to use your website. It's now part of the legislation. And so we saw that as a tremendous opportunity. And one of our senior people had really embraced, our UX specialist had embraced accessibility and had done a lot of training and was a deep believer in it as part of good design. So it's not something that you do because the government says you have to. It's something that if you bake it into your design from the beginning, you'll create a better product and for everyone. And so we started to more confidently tell our clients about this. And there was just a massive need, from training to like remediation of existing websites to PDFs that are posted. And it's been a massively successful part of our business. And it's not something that we had to that was intuitive, because creating this kind of product is something that we believe as a firm, and it's part of our core culture. So it was a much more natural business extension for us. And looking for opportunities like that are gold for a design firm or any business, for sure.
That's a great point. That's a very great point. Yeah, if people keep asking for something over and over, there is an opportunity in there.
Yeah, and it's, we didn't have that skill set until we've hired Kay Andrews, who's our senior UX or director of UX and accessibility. But what I didn't realize is, of course, we needed that skill set to deliver our own work. But clients were also asking, can you train our staff? Like, we need to do this internally. You can't come to you every time for this kind of work. Yeah. So Kay does training seminars for lots of our clients. And it's, again, I don't look at it. Yes, it's a revenue stream and we charge for that service. But to me, it makes us much more of a beneficial asset to our clients because they know that we have their best interests in heart and that we can help them on their own journey for accessibility challenges, and it just makes us the partnership better. So it's a win-win for that.
Yeah, and that is actually like, you know something I picked up about you already.
Oh,
You no, it's a good thing.
okay.
You do these great things, and you think or you say they're like a tiny part of what we do, or it's not really what, or we're not doing it for the money, but it's great because I guess it's just who you are. Okay, two things. Let me explain two of the things. The first thing was when you talked about the company culture and you said it's a tiny thing. We don't really. What was it you said? You said it's a small thing. It might not be significant, but culture is everything, right? The
Yes.
other one you just talked about now is you creating this UX interface, or the way that it's making it more accessible to other people. You said it's not meant to be a revenue stream, or it isn't just because it's a revenue stream. It's actually enhancing the experience for people, and it makes us a more valuable partner. And you're almost downplaying it like another little thing, but I think that is the core of who you are.
Well, thank you. I mean, I think as a firm, we try to be humble. And, that's why I even kind of cringed when Joanne said, should we enter the top growing companies list? And because that's not fundamentally who we are. But I think if you reframe something to be, how does it support who you want to be? And it's not just about growth for growth's sake. It's about a team effort to achieve something remarkable, and acknowledging that effort is really what made me say, yeah, let's try. And I think it's those kinds of things where, I feel much better growing the business when I feel good about the things that we're doing as a team and as a firm offering. And these kinds of things make me happy. They make me feel, and clients really valuable, find them really valuable resources.
Yeah.
And so it makes makes the people that do this work feel like they're really contributing not just to the success of Q30, but to client experience, and ultimately users. People who use our products can use them well, and there's no barriers to people who need a screen reader to navigate a website, etc. So that kind of thing, I think, is fundamentally grounded in who we are. We talk about it, but we don't. I don't want to oversell it, because then it feels advantageous, and that's not where it comes from. That's what you see. I'm not a natural salesperson. That's the problem. That's why I hire someone else.
You're a natural executor. You get things done, but you need somebody else to blow
Yeah.
the trumpet for you. Well, it's a great thing to have you here. Hopefully, something we've said here is going to resonate with someone who is listening and could get from the subtle cues that you're passing along of everything that it takes to be the entrepreneur that you could be. Is there anything I haven't asked you that you want to share with the audience today? Something to promote, something to advise, anything?
Honestly, I again promote. No, I'm not going to promote anything on your podcast. Thank you for the offer. People can find out who we do through digital means, and that's fine if they're interested. But no, I think it's great. I love the fact that your podcast has such an incredibly diverse, in all aspects of the word. When I say diverse, people from different kinds of cultural backgrounds, as well as, life experiences and business experiences. I think that's really valuable. I have only one small perspective from my world that might resonate with someone who's in a similar position. But I think collectively, people that do what we do, there's a lot of learning. We're responsible for such a big part of the country's GDP and the employment. So I think small businesses need to be out there more, because I think it's an important part of of success for both individuals and as countries and provinces and cultures. So it's been fun, and I'm happy to share. And if anybody has any questions, they can find me through some means.
Okay. Well, what's the best platform to reach you or your company?
You can reach out through our website, which is Q30Design.com, or to me directly at pscott@Q30Design.com.
Awesome. We're going to include all the links in the description below. If you're listening on the podcast, check the show notes. And if it's on YouTube, check the description. Thank you for being with us today. Thank you, Peter, for honoring us.
My pleasure. Thank you very much, Ida. Take care.
For more insightful conversations with entrepreneurs, check out this video right here. I think you'll love it. Continue to enjoy, and I'll see you there.